Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Michael and Patty Show podcast, all about Prince Edward Island real estate and PEI in general. Today we're talking about a topic that was brought up in our last podcast about appraisals, how people don't seem to really understand as buyers and sellers what an appraisal actually means. So I'm going to pass it over to Patty. It's a beautiful day in Charlottetown. We're coming to you live, recorded, as they say on TV, from the Charlottetown waterfront from our recording studios here in the Ford F-150. Good morning, Patty.
Good morning, Michael. Thank you for having me today. With regards to appraisals, what I come across,
Let's define appraisals first. What is an appraisal?
So an appraisal is where, obviously, the purchaser is not able to 100% fund the home because they don't have, say, our average price that we were talking about in a previous podcast, say $370,000 sitting in their bank account. So they come up with their 5, 10, 20% down, depending on the situation and their financing background. But they come up with their percentage and they require a lender, whether it's a credit union, they have a mortgage broker, a bank. There's A lenders, B lenders. They require some sort of finance assistance to complete the purchase. As part of the finance approval, typically, and we have seen this done more and more since COVID happening on the island, that the lenders are risk adverse. They want to make sure that they are not over financing, paying more than what the property is actually worth, because if you do end up defaulting, they're going to be the ones stuck holding the mortgage and the property. So they send out an appraisal. Typically, it's on appraiser, sorry.
And sometimes more than one.
Yeah, sometimes they do. And sometimes they'll call an appraiser out even the week prior to closing because they don't trust their own records and the information collected, or something new came to light, or the market shifted. So, the lender approvals are typically given that they have the right to walk away all the way up until closing, really. They are so safeguarded. We just don't always read the small print and realize that they do have that option. So they send out an appraiser. The appraiser will assess the property compared to, and hopefully you have a good appraiser who, and we don't typically get control of this, but who pulls in relevant properties to compare the home, the subject property to. And if they cannot find, and let's just use the $370,000 in that particular area, they do have some great comparables, but the properties come in at, say, $330,000. Well, it's going to be the buyer's responsibility to make up the difference of that $30,000 because the bank is not going to finance $360,000, like the full $360 or $370. So it's up to the buyer's responsibility. Again, a lot of buyers don't know this, but either do sellers. Now, a seller will pick a number, say that $330,000 property, they want the $370,000, and to finance, they want their credit cards paid off, they'd like to pay out their car loan, they want to take a trip, their home going forward is a little bit more, costly. So they're assuming they're going to cash in and the buyer is going to end up supplementing this new lifestyle or whatever they have going on. They can ask whatever they want for a property. It's just going to take time and the right buyer to show up. However, if that buyer requires financing and we need an appraisal done on it, the bank is not going to finance an overpriced property. So that's where it becomes very important to ask the right questions, have a great real estate professional who understands the market, doesn't buy your listing by giving you an inflated price or telling you what you want to hear, because they're only going to come in and shatter your dreams that you're not paying off that credit card, you're not taking that trip, or it's going to take you 3 years to sell it to get the price that you want. Yeah.
And I think, just as a side note, a lot of people get mortgages not because they have to have a mortgage, but because it makes sense to do so. In the past, we were borrowing money at basically free, 1, 2, 3%. You index that against inflation, it's basically free money. Now the interest rates are higher, but in my opinion, in many, they're still very reasonable. But if you're getting a return of 8% somewhere else, why would you lend yourself the money at 6% if you can borrow it from the bank? So the appraisers typically are very good at what they do. They do absolutely have latitude, particularly for rural properties. But at the end of the day, if you're buying a property in PEI and you're mortgaging it, the appraiser, which is typically tendered out by the lender, will have to establish a value in that property to make sure that if the bank gets stuck with it, they can liquidate it.
Yes, yeah. And again, I just don't think many sellers have had this properly and explained to them so that they realize, which is why you see all these inflated prices. And I mean, the sellers that have inflated prices are realtors or sales professionals who've given them an inflated price on their property. That is going to be, in my opinion, what shifts us back to a buyer's market, because we're going to have inventory, beginning to sit once again on the market. Our days on market have already gone up, and it's going to go back to a buyer's market. So sellers are going to have to, unfortunately, end up pricing their properties properly once again if they want to generate a sale within a certain time period. But just with regards to appraisals, we just wanted to make sure that people understood what that meant from a buyer's perspective, from a seller's perspective, and the importance of pricing your property correctly.
Well done. It's a wrap. Everybody have a great day. Thanks for listening. And be sure to rate this podcast. Send Patty or I an email or a message if you have any questions about Prince Edward Island or PEI in general. We both moved here from Southern Ontario. And we've been doing this for just under 40 years, full-time, 7 days a week, immersed up to our neck in PEI real estate. And we're certainly happy to give you our candid and honest answer to any of your questions.
Yeah. Send in your questions, or if there's something that you'd like us to cover, we would be more than happy to do a podcast on it.
See ya.
Have a great day.